I tried doing the right thing. It backfired immediately, I'll tell you what. Recently decided I was going to be one of those responsible adults. You know, the kind people talk about, but I'm not convinced actually exist. Because every time I try, it feels like I'm pretending in a very poorly rehearsed play. Woke up that morning with a rare burst of motivation, which is dangerous because motivation for me is like a stray cat. If you acknowledge it too much, it follows you around and ruins your day. I stood in my kitchen staring at my coffee maker like it had personally wronged me. Today is the day I do everything correctly, which, in hindsight, is a sentence that should come with background music and flashing warning lights. I decided I'd help everyone, be polite, stay calm, make smart decisions, basically a full personality change before 9 a.m. I don't know why I thought that was realistic. The problem is, whenever I try to help, the universe leans over and says, "Oh, you want to be helpful. That's adorable." And then it rearranges my life like furniture in a bad hotel room. I started with something small, something I thought even I couldn't mess up, but the more I tried to do the right thing, the more everything started moving in the wrong direction. Like I was playing a game where every button does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. People around me kept saying, "Wow, that was nice of you." But they said it in that tone that really means, "This is going to end badly, isn't it?" And I could feel it too, that slow creeping realization that my good intentions were sprinting toward disaster. The thing is, I wasn't panicking. I was calmly watching my own chaos unfold, like a weather reporter describing a tornado that I accidentally created. And I kept thinking, if I just stay composed, this will fix itself, which might be the most unrealistic thought a human can have. Every step I took felt like I was digging a hole while confidently saying, "Don't worry, I know exactly how deep this is," even though I very clearly did not. By this point, I wasn't just trying to do the right thing. I was committed, emotionally invested, way too far in to back out. And that's when things started getting even stranger. I woke up that morning with what I can only describe as dangerously clean motivation. The kind that shows up uninvited and makes you believe you're suddenly capable of emotional stability, financial responsibility, maybe even doing laundry correctly in the same day. It wasn't calm motivation either. It was loud, bright, overly confident, like a life coach had snuck into my brain while I was asleep and replaced my personality with a motivational poster. I remember lying there thinking, today, a different person, which is a wild thought to have before your eyes are fully open, because I hadn't even proven I could brush my teeth without zoning out. There's something suspicious about waking up and immediately feeling productive, because normally I need at least 20 minutes just to remember my own name. That morning I felt like I had unlocked a new level of adulthood I was absolutely not qualified for. I got out of bed standing straighter than usual, like my spine had signed up for a leadership seminar overnight. And I was convinced this was the day everything would go perfectly. The problem with that kind of confidence is it doesn't come with instructions, warnings, realistic sense of limitation. It just hands you a megaphone and says, "Go fix your life." I walked into my kitchen like I was the CEO of responsibility, staring at my coffee machine the way people stare at complicated technology in movies, except I use it every single day and still act like it's NASA equipment. In my head, already planned an entire character arc for myself, helpful, calm, patient, thoughtful, basically a person other people would describe as impressive, which is dangerous because no one has ever used that word about me in a genuine way. That burst of morning motivation feels amazing in the moment, but it's also deeply misleading, like sprinting full speed in socks on a freshly waxed floor. You feel powerful right up until physics reminds you that you are not. Kept thinking, if I start my day doing the right thing, everything else will follow, not realizing that sometimes the universe hears that and immediately starts setting up comedic traps just to see how committed you really are. I stood there that morning fully convinced that I could simply decide to be a better person the same way someone decides what to have for breakfast. As if maturity is just a button you press instead of a long, inconvenient process you avoid your whole life. In my mind, I wasn't just making small improvements, I was attempting a complete personality renovation, like I was flipping a house, but the house was my emotional stability. And let me tell you, that house was not up to code. Kept telling myself, today I will be calm, helpful, reasonable, and thoughtful, which sounds great until you realize that those four things have never existed in me at the same time for more than approximately 47 seconds. I had this very cinematic version of myself playing in my head, walking slowly through life, speaking gently, making wise decisions. Basically, someone who looks like they drink water instead of panic coffee. And that alone should have been my first warning sign. There's something strange about deciding to be a completely different person before you've even interacted with another human being, because you're essentially setting yourself up for failure with a smile. I imagine conversations going perfectly, problem solving themselves, and me responding to everything with patience like I was starring in a self-help commercial. Reality, I am the kind of person who gets overwhelmed deciding what lane to be in at a grocery store. The more I committed to this new, responsible adult identity, the more pressure I unknowingly placed on myself. Like I had signed a contract with the universe that I didn't bother reading. I kept thinking, if I just try hard enough, I can become the version of me that exists in motivational Instagram reels, completely ignoring the fact that those people are either lying or extremely medicated. What made it even worse was how serious I was taking this transformation, as if my entire life depended on being helpful before noon. And that's when things started feeling less like personal growth and more like a very organized disaster waiting to happen. I decided to start with something small, something so simple that even I, with my questionable track record, could not possibly mess it up, which is exactly the kind of thinking that has gotten me into trouble more times than I care to admit. In my head, I treated this tiny act of helpfulness like a test run for my new responsible personality, as if the universe would give me bonus points if I passed. Didn't realize that even the easiest tests sometimes have trick questions. I looked around for something obvious to do, the kind of task people normally don't even think twice about, because I wanted a clean, smooth win to boost my confidence. Not realizing that confidence is often the reason things go sideways in the first place. The problem was, the more I told myself, this is easy, the more my brain seemed to shut down basic common sense like it clocked out early for the day. I moved with this overly polite determination, smiling to myself like I was in a commercial for kindness, completely unaware that I was walking straight into a comedic trap I had unknowingly set up. As soon as I took that first step to help, I felt that strange sensation where you know something is slightly off, but you ignore it because backing out would hurt your ego. It started small, just a minor complication, barely noticeable. But I could feel it, that familiar shift where things stop behaving the way they're supposed to. Suddenly, my simple, helpful action required more effort, more explanation, more movement, and before I knew it, I was mentally negotiating with an entirely avoidable situation. People nearby watched quietly, their faces stuck in that polite half smile that really means, I see what you're trying to do, but this is about to get interesting. The funniest part was that I still believed I was in control, calmly pushing forward like a pilot who insists everything is fine while the warning lights blink behind him. Each small decision led to another, each smart move made things slightly more complicated, and I found myself deep inside a problem that did not exist 5 minutes earlier, all because I tried to be helpful in the simplest possible way. People around me reacted in that uniquely polite human way that looks supportive on the surface, but is absolutely loaded with silent concern underneath. The kind of reaction you only get when everyone can see a disaster forming except you. At first, they smiled and said things like, "That's nice of you," in the same tone people use when a toddler proudly hands them a broken toy, pretending it's fine while mentally preparing for chaos. I could feel their eyes on me, not in a dramatic way, but in that quiet, observational way where you know you've accidentally become the day's entertainment without signing up for it. No one stopped me, which honestly might have been the cruelest part, because when strangers let you continue, that's not trust, that's curiosity. Every time I made a move, someone nodded slightly. They were watching a documentary in real time titled, well, intention person slowly losing control. Few people even threw in casual comments like, "Wow, you've really got this," which is code for, "Cannot wait to see how this ends." The room had that strange tension where everyone is calm but fully aware that something is about to unravel, like sitting in a restaurant where the waiter keeps dropping plates but insists it's fine. What made it funnier was how normal they tried to act, as if nothing was going wrong, even though their expressions told a completely different story. I could practically hear their internal monologues. "This is going to be bad, but I'm invested now." Meanwhile, I'm standing there convinced I'm being inspiring, completely unaware that I've unintentionally turned into a live case study in overconfidence. Every compliment felt less like praise and more like narration, as if people were gently documenting my downfall rather than supporting my effort. And the more they watched, the more I felt that strange pressure to keep going, because once an audience forms, you can't just back out, you have to commit. If your brain is quietly screaming that you should have stopped 5 minutes ago, inside my head was putting on the calmest performance of my life, like I had hired a very smooth, very confident narrator to explain my decisions while everything around me quietly fell apart. On the outside, composed, relaxed shoulders, steady voice, polite smile, but internally, my brain was running a chaotic commentary track that sounded more like a confused news reporter during a natural disaster. Kept thinking, okay, stay cool, stay normal, don't panic, which is exactly what you say right before your mind starts panicking anyway. But in a very organized, professional way. It felt like I was watching myself from above, calmly describing the situation, like, here we see a well-intentioned person making increasingly questionable choices while I continued to make them in real time. Every move I made came with this silent narration. Interesting decision, bold, really not sure it was correct, but we'll go with it. I could practically hear my thoughts adding dramatic pauses, as if my life had suddenly turned into a documentary about bad decision making. What made it even funnier was how convinced I was that if I just acted calm enough, reality would somehow follow along, like the universe would say, "Oh, you seem relaxed, never mind, disaster canceled." Meanwhile, small problems kept stacking up one on top of another, like a very unstable tower I was pretending was structurally sound. I told myself things like, "This is fine, totally manageable," even as the situation became less fine by the second. But my pride refused to let me admit that out loud. It was like I was both the pilot and the air traffic controller, calmly assuring myself everything was under control while warning lights blinked in every direction. The weirdest part was how rational I sounded in my own head, breaking down each mistake logically, as if that would somehow undo it, when really I was just narrating my own slow descent into chaos. Every time I tried to course correct, I overthought it, second-guessed myself, and somehow made things even more complicated, all while maintaining that completely convincing outer calm that fooled absolutely no one watching me. By the time I realized what was happening, I was already far past the point where a normal person would have politely backed out, apologized, and pretended they never tried to help in the first place, but pride had quietly locked all the exits behind me. I wasn't just involved anymore. I was fully committed, emotionally invested, way too deep in my own doing the right thing, experiment to admit defeat, which is a dangerous place for someone like me to be. It's funny how that works, because at the start you think you're making a small, reasonable choice. They're smart, and then suddenly you're standing in the middle of a situation that requires a level of responsibility you never signed up for. I could feel that shift, that moment where something stops being a simple favor and turns into a full-scale personal mission. Instead of stepping away, I doubled down like I was defending my doctoral thesis on helpfulness. My brain kept whispering, "You can't quit now. People are watching," which is ironic because the only reasons were messy in the first place was because I was trying to impress people who didn't even ask for help. Every attempt to fix what I had started only tangled me deeper, like trying to untee a knot by pulling it tighter. Yet I kept convincing myself that the next move would magically solve everything. I started treating this situation like a puzzle I absolutely had to complete. Even though I didn't understand the rules, the pieces didn't fit, and the box clearly said, "Do not open." The more complicated things became, the more stubborn I got, because admitting I was wrong felt worse than continuing down a path that was obviously going nowhere. At that point, it wasn't about helping anymore. It was about survival, reputation, not looking like the person who confidently walked into chaos with a smile. I could feel the pressure building, that strange mix of determination and panic, like someone running full speed toward a door that may or may not exist. The only thing I knew for sure was that turning back now would be just as awkward as pushing forward. And that's how I learned that trying to do the right thing is kind of like walking into quicksand wearing roller skates. It seems like a good idea at first, and you're convinced you've got control, but then suddenly you're flailing around. Everyone's watching politely. You start questioning all of your life choices while hoping no one notices how badly you're sinking. I keep thinking, next time, maybe I'll just do nothing. But deep down, I know my brain will trick me into thinking doing the right thing is a simple, reasonable plan again, and the cycle will start all over, which honestly is probably the funniest part of the whole thing.